Third time around for the Wizard of Oz. How does it feel to be stepping into the role of the wizard in this show?
Well, it's very different, Damien, to other roles as the wizard. This time we really find out what he's all about. And I didn't realise until coming into Wicked, which is the precursor, of course, to the Wizard of Oz, that he's not just a fat, jolly man who likes doing nice things. He's got a dark side too. Very interesting character, and quite a journey for someone like myself to play him.
He's got some great songs to sing as well, and also dubbing off with Maggie Kirkpatrick is a lot of fun, I'm sure.
It is, and Maggie's a dream to work with because we all remember her, of course, from Prisoner, but she's a fine stage actress too, and her performance as Madame Morrible, who's another heavy in the show, is just terrific, and we've found a good chemistry, nice bonding, and she's good fun backstage too.
Do you have a favourite song out of Wicked?
I guess one of the songs I sing, I've only got two songs. One is I'm a Sentimental Man. That's nice because at that stage of the game, the wizard is loved by everybody. It's not necessarily the case by the time Act 2 comes along.
Yes, exactly. And we see the real side of the wizard, don't we?
Exactly. Spot on.
It's amazing how much this show has taken not just Melbourne, but also into, around Australia by storm. Some 23% of the visitors to the show are actually from interstate.
Yes, and I think that's some sort of record nowadays, of course, because certain shows have to be based in a capital city, and usually it's Melbourne and Sydney that get that job to start off a show. In days gone by, the average show would always go to Brisbane, Adelaide and Perth and so forth. Cost now, and also the size of scenery and so forth, precludes that in most cases. But in this particular case, down in Melbourne at the Regent Theatre, to get that percentage, 23%, it's never happened to me before in any show that I've done. But it does show also the pulling power of Wicked. Sometimes word of mouth does work. And before it arrived in Australia, the raps about it overseas in America, Broadway particularly, where it had its major opening, proved to be right. And people just people in the theatre particularly couldn't wait to see it, fellow pros. But then when the news got out to lovers of theatre, same thing happened. And then to a lot of people, there's something like, some stats were done, that it's about 40% of the people who see Wizard, the Wizard of Oz, come to see Wicked and are amazed that there is a marriage between the two shows, but a marriage they never realised before. And the other interesting percentage is that apart from that 23% of people who come from interstate to see the show, there's a huge percentage of people who are coming to see Wicked who've never seen a live show before. So that says a lot about the quality of the reports from person to person about what a great show it is.
That excitement also transcends to the actors who are on stage. I remember covering the opening night, and surely enough, the actors, you virtually had to scrape them off the ceiling.
Yeah, I was rather lucky in one respect. I wasn't there from day one. And the one thing that was not a negative, but it stood out, was that the rehearsal period was a very gruelling situation. They rehearsed in a hall for a start, and that was fine. But they had the longest, what they call tech run, which is the run to make sure that technically everything is going to happen in the show. And that went on for 3 weeks. And you might do only 10 seconds to 30 seconds on stage. The whole thing has to be stopped whilst they set it technically again or correct a problem that's come up. And the actors, after 3 weeks of that, were pretty well bushed. But everyone told me that all of a sudden when they started doing previews, they realised all of that time was worthwhile. And then opening night, as you well know, it just went through the roof.
And since then, the rest is history. 9 months on, and it's still booking really strongly.
It is, and still the interstate people are coming. And once again, a lot of those people are from Queensland, which I think is terrific for theatre. I would have worried if I didn't know the details. I think, well, it's going to be really expensive to do it, but there are so many wonderful package deals and things. And apart from anything else, it's a weekend away from your home. Melbourne, which, allegedly is renowned for having 4 wonderful seasons in the one day. It's not quite true. Usually we turn on pretty good weather, but the the eating and the dining generally is terrific in Melbourne, and the hotel accommodation, and so many people whom I talk to after the show at the stage door, they've come down for the weekend or for a couple of days and they've had a ball. Some of them returning to Melbourne where they were originally brought up, and then they saw the light and moved to Queensland.
And especially this weekend, perfect weekend to go to Melbourne for Queenslanders.
Yeah, well, indeed, exactly. It's just the time, and we'll welcome you with open arms. Bring your wallet.
How difficult was it for you, Bert, to step into the role after, of course, the passing of Rob Guest, who I know is a great friend of yours?
It was difficult. It was difficult to say yes to it first up when I was offered it. I had auditioned originally for The Wizard, and so had Rob, and so had a lot of people. And initially, there was a leak that I had gotten the role. I hadn't heard from anybody. And John Frost, the producer, he and I are friends. And I thought, well, I'll wait for him to tell me that. Although I'm sure you can believe what you read in the paper. But it wasn't to be. It was Rob that got the role. And whilst I was disappointed that I didn't get it, and I learn now that it got down to the final two of Rob and myself, at the time, I was thrilled for Rob. And I think they chose correctly, because he's a man of theatre with a terrific score on the board. Phantom of the Opera, Jolson, Sound of Music, Music Man, the whole thing. Then to get the news that he'd taken ill suddenly and then died within 24 hours, the last thing on my mind was the role of the Wizard. I was just saddened by it, like everyone was, and Kelly, who was his life partner and who happens to be the music director of the show, I contacted her and spoke to her, and so I really wasn't thinking of the show, although I was thinking of the cast, imagining what dreadful times they were going through, and they were, as I discovered. And then a week or so later, John rang me and offered it to me, and I didn't know what to say. And then I thought, it probably sounds like a fairy story, but I thought, I think Rob would suggest I said yes, and I asked Patty, my wife, and she said yes. And I knew a little about the show because I auditioned, and I knew the premise, and seeing the show, I knew that it was a wonderful production. But I was concerned how I was going to be welcomed into the company, because Rob had made such a huge impression, not only on stage, but especially backstage, because he was a wonderful role model for younger performers. And this is a young company, and they welcomed me with open arms, and I'm so glad I made that decision, and I'm so glad that John offered me the role.
Well, it looks like you'll be in Melbourne doing The Wizard for some time to come with the track record this show's had.
It looks like it, Damien, and I think also that with a show like Wicked, they come along in a performer's life only maybe once, and so I've signed for the Melbourne season, and I do welcome the interstaters to come down. And the proof of the pudding is that a lot of the interstaters, including from Queensland, come back and see it a second time. So, in the old days I would have thought perhaps they wanted to see if we'd improved. But this time around they were coming back because they wanted to.
Thanks for joining us.
Good on you, mate. Pleasure. Thank you, Damien.